Hello, everyone. Master your emotion and find your truth. So today I've got a beautiful, how I can say her name, Natalia or Nat? Or
Yeah,
Nat?
Nat or Nathalie.
Nat.
Yeah, Nat's
Okay.
usually the nickname.
Okay. So I'm going to only call you Nat. So I've got a beautiful soul. Which one is coming? Which one would like to share a lot of beautiful stuff, beautiful experience. But before I'm going to dive in, I would like to introduce her. So she's a speaker, she's a blogger, and she's a peer supporter and also group facilitator. If I'm correct, I'm just only got that information from the online. Um, yes, I would like to give you, Natalia, not sorry, I don't know why I'm just keep saying Natalia, Nat, if you would like to introduce yourself to my audience. By the way, my audience is really, really spiritual people and also people who would like to transform their life. So I hope, and definitely, maybe not hope, but definitely they're going to take something from your knowledge and from your beautiful wisdom.
Oh, thank you, Gabriela. Yeah, great to be here. Um, I live in BC, Canada. I'm originally from Scotland, so I immigrated over here about 10 years ago. At the time, I was going through really turbulent times with my mental health, and I had no idea that, anything was off kilter or needed adjusted. And over the past, I would say 8 years, I've really been working on changing, my belief systems, working on care strategies. I got into the field of mental health and substance use with my lived experience. I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder, psychosis, PTSD, and substance use disorder about 8 years ago. And my big focus is trying to kind of regain control and control the narrative because I was told all these wild things back then. So that's really been my focus for the past 8 years. And as
Mhm.
you said, I'm a peer supporter and group facilitator. So I'm very passionate about suicide awareness, about recovery oriented practices, and just having that shared journey of lived experience to support one another.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's why we are here together. So that's why we would like to support each other. Yes, definitely like that. Because you mentioned something about the limiting beliefs. If you would like to just only bring it closer, because I know as a coach, as a professional, we just only always saying the limiting beliefs. But the most of the people didn't have any idea what is the limiting beliefs. So if you would like to just only give some example about around it, that would be much more better for viewers to understand what is the limiting beliefs. They've got one. Of course, they've got
Yeah, for sure. And
everyone
I
got.
think, everybody is so different and unique and individual. But for me, those limiting beliefs were a slow growth that were impacted by my environment, my situation, poverty levels, outside influences such as bullying or struggles, and obviously the component of me having a mental illness too. But I shaped these core beliefs and um, in turn, I kind of told myself that all the suffering, all the things that I'd went through was my own fault. And I do link a little bit that back to my youth because I was brought up quite religious, and within that kind of view, I told myself, this is God's will, this is what the universe wants for me. Therefore, I must deserve all this hurt. I must deserve all this pain. I must have caused something to cause this ripple effect back on me. And I told myself that for years. So it
Yeah,
contains the suffering and the struggle into this small explosive space that just suffocated me. It just made it so much worse because I had built this philosophy in my head that it was my fault, my doing. I deserved this. The universe wanted this for me. And I couldn't see past that. I couldn't see that in the long term, I was growing and learning and changing with my environment. And there was something so beautiful about that, but it's taken me a really long time to uncover. And it's a slow, slow process.
yeah, yeah. Especially when we growing and in the environment, which one been anyway, we just only choose if you. I don't know about you, but for me example, I really strongly believe in my past lives. I strongly believe also about, well, before we came here on the planet Earth, we've chosen to be here and we choose the specific family and etc. And far more away. So especially when you here in the three-dimensional world and you're being suppressed and you'll be told, and anyway, you came here in that family, everything is in your DNA, isn't it? And then we are growing, and we strongly believe that's really true. But
Yeah.
how did you find it? If you would like to share it, of course, for the audience, how did you find it? That belief is that really limiting you, and that's really not true with your really true self. I don't know if that's making sense for you.
I think so. When I was 25, I had a very severe episode of psychosis. So I
Mm-hmm.
completely lost touch with reality, as we see it. I believe I found another form of reality in that experience.
Mm-hmm.
But it put me in hospital. It gave me a new label, diagnosis, structure to my life, and everything had to be planned out and thought about. And um, that was the way I needed to kind of crack. It was this pressure of, you now have this label, this is now how your life looks. And the doctor sat me down. He said, you'll never work again. You'll never have a long-term relationship. You'll never have kids. Your
Oh,
mum might have to immigrate from Scotland to be your carer. You're going to be in and out of hospital for the rest of your life. And I was already in that little vacuum of pain and suffering, and that's the pressure that it took to go, no, I need to break out of all of this, because that just doesn't work for me. That's not going to be my life. And that's when I really started to uncover what I thought about the pain and suffering, and then be able to shift that belief system to something with more potential, something with more space for growth, and more compassion for myself as well.
yeah. Yeah, but sometimes the people just not really ready to, I would like to say, awake for
Mm.
changes, for transformation, because you had that opportunity inside yourself and saying, oh my goodness, you had that, I would like to say, you had that light inside you, that a sparkle is saying, it's not really for me. It's not really for me. So you didn't follow that rules. I mean, the rules and that, mm, how can I say, the words from the doctors and all the suggestion when somebody told you. So what you can tell others if they're going to find in this, maybe not this the same situation, but they been told somebody something and they don't really struggle and don't really believe. How would you like to tell them really in a nice way? And oh my goodness, I don't know. I couldn't find the word to be honest. How you can advise them how they're going to change the limiting beliefs? That would be the best way.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a big question, actually.
It is.
Because
It is.
it is such a process. You don't just wake up one day and say, I don't want my life to be like this. It's slowly planting those seeds along the way that build into something bigger. And I think one thing I've learned is that our intuitions are never wrong. That feeling in your gut when you know something is awry, when you know there's something more out there, and listen to that. Listen, because if your gut's telling you something, I believe it's probably because your heart is at the wheel. And when we limit that, it causes all kinds of problems in our life. So yeah, I would just say listen to your intuition, be true to yourself. If you think something's not right, then we have the power to try and make it right. And that's our personal responsibility as well that comes into it. So yeah, I think I would say that. Listen to your gut more.
Yeah, but how they can listen? Because sometimes, the ego and the inner, that a chatty mind is only saying us completely different, taking that different direction. So how we can recognize the ego, let's go say the ego, which one is protecting us, but they're in the three-dimensional world in the completely different way, opposite way. But also how we can find the intuition, how we can recognize that's the intuition talking to us, that's the ego talking to us. How we can do that? How will we know that?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's hard too, especially in this day and age. There's so many moving parts, there's so many pressures. there is just everything's moving a mile a minute, and it's hard to listen to yourself or even understand what your body and mind need at any given point, because we're just put under this, big race against time. But for me, slowing down and trying to tune into what I need, and what my body needs and my mind needs, and soaking up perspectives from other people, because our worldviews are so individual that if we're not learning from each other, we're not noticing what might be right or might be wrong within ourselves, or what might need attention, or how we can focus on our own journey. So yeah, for me, it was a bit of being open, being flexible, and slowing down, because I was so caught up in, the world, and being able to take that time to sit back and assess, what do I think? What do I believe in? What do I hold true to my heart? And how to move forward with that in the truest way possible.
Yeah, how we can recognize the limiting beliefs. I mean, that's something hold us back.
Yeah. But it's identifying them, right? In the first place. Like, I went through most of my life thinking that was just the way the world was, so that was just the way I was, and not having any clue of that for, 2 decades.
Yeah.
That when I slowed down and looked at, like, what actually do I believe in? What do I stand for? And how is that limiting me, right? What are my obstacles? But I think it's just time. Time is so important. Like, every opportunity for growth and connection and learning about each other just holds so much potential for yourself.
Because how I can just only see the limiting beliefs as well is, for me, as a kind of the pattern in our lives, which is only repeating that cycle and cycle. It's like I've got that vision, like we are bouncing the wall, and just only going and just only bang, and I've got really lots of bruise around us, and we're saying, oh my goodness, why this wall couldn't break? But we are just only constantly going over there, but we're not allowing ourselves, like you said, Nat, slow down, chill out, and just go inside us. That's why I would like to just repeat your words, slow down, go inside, because I would like to connect our inner child. Shall we talk a little bit around the inner child? Because I strongly believe that's really connection around the limiting beliefs as well. So did you find your inner child?
I'm still working on that relationship, and I think it's something I'll be working on for the rest of my life. I've worked through this in therapy and circles and stuff, and my inner child really kind of slipped away from me at a very young age. And it wasn't until maybe about 5 years ago that I opened up a dialogue with her and made space for her. And only about a month or 2 ago, I was at a mental health conference down in Florida, and I was doing this compassionate inquiry workshop with Dr. Gabor Mate, and I just felt the surge of, in the moment emotion, and I was very vulnerable, and I wanted to participate. And Gabor asked me a question. He said, when did you first feel guilty? And in that moment, sitting there, I reconnected with my inner child again.
Wow.
And I first felt guilty when I was 4.5 years old. My first memory in life is of feeling guilty. And that's when that limiting belief started, that it was my fault, that this is what I deserve, that this suffering was what I had to endure. And I never thought it went that far back. I thought I practiced self-compassion. I thought I was having good chats with my inner child. And until Dr. Gabor asked me that question, I thought, whoa, I didn't even realize it went back to that young, like I didn't realize it was 4.5 years old as a young age to be trying to reconnect with. I mean, that was 30 years ago, Natalie, I'm trying to connect with that.
That's a big, he just only pinpoint, okay, oh, that's the year, because I strongly also believe everything is begun. Actually, they're saying we just only program our magic program from 0 to 7. okay, I believe that aspect. I believe that for this knowledge and for this wisdom, but also I believe we've been programmed not just only when we're born here in this world, but also in mommy tummy or something like that during the pregnancy, and also beyond that stuff. So that's a really, I would like to say, the vast major topic for the later on. But yeah, that's everything when which is only going back to the our childhood. So everything is created over there around the limiting beliefs. Like you mentioned, you felt guilty, you felt that stuff, and you found it. Wow, that's amazing. How did you felt after? Would you like to say the audience how is that feel when you just only discover and when you just only release that limiting beliefs from the system?
Well, I think, yeah, going back to that limiting belief, that moment in Florida really taught me that this is deeper than I kind of gave it credit for, and I do have a lot more work to do. But it felt like this huge release because it had identified a moment in my life where things shifted for me, identified the very earliest kind of moment I started growing into that box and my world started growing smaller. And everything that's happened since then was just, added on top. And now it's like, whoa, I can breathe because I can actually pinpoint and reflect and grow from what happened way back when.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, and it's given me a lot of conversation for therapy. So
Yeah, but because I would like to just only articulate here, everyone who is watching us, this is not a work just for one day. It's not something is happening over the night. No, it's not definitely. Yeah, you agree as well. That's a really, my goodness, I would like to say the really whole spectrum that goes slowly, step by step. You need to dissect this, find this, ask the question, and just yeah. And definitely, like you said, slow down because when you're slowing down, you listen yourself more, and you just only okay, you're much observer because you need to observe yourself, isn't it? That's much better.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, I think for anyone that's, looking to change their belief systems or grow or be open, have an awakening, you really got to look at this as a lifelong endeavor. Like I might start being able to open those dialogues again with that 4.5-year-old child, and I might be able to grow from that and learn from that and heal. But what happens tomorrow could be another traumatic experience, or it could trigger something that happened when I was 15 years old. And so without that commitment to yourself that this is going to be a lifelong journey of growing and healing and soaking in these opportunities, then, as you said, it doesn't happen overnight. And it's not a ribbon cut. It's not, I know one day I'm going to run and go, whoa, I've healed myself. I don't think that's possible, like the curveballs of life will tell us that themselves. So, yeah.
But definitely we have to price ourselves. We have to be grateful and we have to be proud about the even small tiny stuff. Like you discover 4.5 years old. So you need to celebrate that moment. But also you said when you're going to find on the 15 years old, when you I'm not saying you, but something happened for them. And then okay, again, they heal and they celebrate that moment and again and again and again. That's amazing. So how can you because sometimes the people just only don't see the inner child as a small version of themselves. Um, how did you see your inner child? How any vision that you had about your inner child, or somebody gave you that vision?
I think I was disconnected with her for so long that I'm still really learning what she's about. Um, I when I was younger, so when I was younger, I had this dream and it stayed in my head for 20 years. And when I broached it with my therapist one day, he said to me, "That was your inner child, walking away." And that was a significant moment in my life where I completely lost hope. And I gave up. I became really negative, really pessimistic. Um, and I replay that dream in my head all the time because it was a culmination of things that led her to that point, to giving up hope. And I feel, from 4.5 to the age of 16, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be, I'm going to be walking with this child for a long time.
Mm. Because in my head, in my vision, like when I'm seeing Gabriela, I'm seeing a small Gabriela just only walking, like flipping or just only skipping, and that's how I can see myself. Actually, now it's
Yeah.
coming 6 years old, so it's something. But that's how I can see. I've got that vision because sometimes the people just only had the feeling, that own energetic feelings. But anyway, it doesn't matter how you can see, how you can vision, you can draw everything what you would like to. But how did you reconnect? I know you said that therapist, you said a lots of probably healing process. But if you would like to give a specific tip for one soul, how would you like to help them, or what kind of the specific technique you would like to recommend?
Um, I think again, it comes back to that slowing down. I mean, I have a very good therapist, and when things come up for me, I am really eager to explore it. And there was a time in my life where something came up for me, and I fought back or I ran away. You know, I was fight or flight, 100%. Um, and I think the slowing down and opening up these conversations, whether it's with a therapist or with a friend or with a family member, or even
Yeah.
with a stranger, I think just opening up those dialogues gives us the space to reconnect. Because sometimes when it's all in your head, it just becomes, too messy to make sense of. So having those conversations with yourself, with others, um, yeah, I can't even say there was like a light bulb moment where I reconnected again. I think it's just been a slow process of coming back to myself, coming back to my inner child. It's funny how you see your inner child skipping and jumping. I see my
Oh
inner
yeah.
child huddled in a corner, crying and
Oh,
in pain. So um, definitely still things I have to work on because I want her to be skipping and I want her to be at Disney World having fun and you know, but I still got some ways to go for sure.
yeah. But definitely, I'm saying now, how I can see my inner Gabriela. But before my healing process, I saw her completely different way. I saw her in the corner.
Yeah.
I saw her, yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, just only closing shoulder and don't touch, don't just go away. But now I just see completely different vision. Oh my goodness, that's a happiness,
Oh, I
happiness,
love
and joy
that
for
for
me.
you. I love that for you. And it gives me so much hope because one day I'll have that relationship with her
Oh,
again. And it's very
definitely.
exciting.
Definitely, that's an amazing feeling. That's how I put a yeah, all the time, just keeping visioning, 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 and just only loving. Because around the self-love, when we are not loving ourselves, we're not loving our inner child as well. So
Yeah.
also another thing, like we mentioned at the beginning, and you mentioned as well, definitely, Nat, about the limiting beliefs, and then I connected that the inner child, and now as a self-love is coming. So would you mind just only say a little bit around the self-love?
Hmm. So I've been having a shift in this myself actually, that I don't think my issue was ever self-love. I think it was self-worth,
Oh, okay.
and I think for me, like people
Good.
talk a lot about self-love and they kind of might seem to people that they're just minuscule actions, go for a bath or be kind to yourself or buy yourself some flowers or, like these small actions of love. But for me, it was a worth issue. I never thought I was worthy. I never gave myself space to be accepting of opportunities because I didn't feel I deserved them. And again, coming back to that limiting belief of I deserved all the pain and suffering, is that when I started to realize my self worth, that's when things started shifting for me. Um, so I think it's, constantly kind of rewiring your patterns and instilling in yourself and challenging your negative talk that no, I am worth this. I am worth happiness. I am worth, 100 times more than the pain and suffering I've endured.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing because you mentioned a lot of limiting beliefs today. And some of the people who are listening, if they really listen, because listen and listen, if they really listen us, they probably pick it up some of the limiting beliefs. But you said about the worthiness. Is any tips or is any advice how we can improve that stuff? We can improve that limiting beliefs inside us.
I don't know. I mean, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation for me because when I didn't feel worthy and when I didn't feel love
I love
in
that
my heart
analogy.
and when I was, what's that?
I love that analogy, chicken and eggs. Amazing.
Well, it is because, you know, my my feelings about myself and my limiting beliefs dictated much of my environment, you know,
Yeah.
who I hung out with, the people that treated me good or bad were very dictative of how I felt about myself. So I was always in this world of suffering because I attracted the wrong people, I hung out at the wrong places, I did the wrong things, and it wasn't until I had that self worth and that things started flowing better into my life, and I found myself in environments with people that were lifting me up and supporting me and challenging me in a good way. And so that's where I say that chicken or egg thing because you know was it the environment that was causing that pain and suffering? Was it the people I was with, or did that all come from my self worth? So I don't think I'll ever know. I think it's just a case of staying curious, like exploring these situations. If I'm not comfortable in my gut, how can I change it? And how does that feel when I change it? If I'm all of a sudden feeling happier with one person or one environment or one action or one behavior, um, do I need more of that? And how do I do it? You know, so it's building those steps to yeah, just provide better opportunities, I guess, for growth.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I love that. Definitely I love the chicken and eggs. I've been talking to when I was walking with my husband and my children, and we were talking about the eggs as well. I don't know where that come from. But amazing, yeah, because that's why, yeah, you've been asking those questions. So everyone who is listening, ask those questions. Is that me or is environment? Do I need to change something inside me, or do I need to change whole spectrum, whole society where I'm living in? Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, asking the questions. That's the major point. When you're not asking
Mm-hmm.
yourself how you can change. Yeah. Wow. Oh gosh. I had a question. I forgot about the question. About the boundaries. So how is that feel inside you? If you're going to set the boundaries, um, so we can change our limiting beliefs as well. Sorry, as well.
Yeah, would you say like just boundaries in general, or like in relationships, or
In general, I'm not asking
in
the
general?
specific, just in general, when we're setting the boundaries.
Oh, okay. Well, I think again it comes back to like when we're being curious about our makeup, like how far do we want that to go? Like, you know, there's days, for example, where I know I'm feeling low, um, and what I could do or do not could exacerbate that or it could alleviate it. So I have a firm boundary. I actually have it all written out in a piece of paper, like the steps I do when I'm not feeling well, or the steps I do when I feel, you know, like I'm about to enter into something unknown. And I think it's like, you know, knowing yourself and asking those questions, as we just said a few minutes ago,
Yeah,
is, you know, staying true to yourself. Because if we're not setting those boundaries within ourselves and understanding what kind of stopping points we have, then we can never reflect that onto other things like our relationships or work life or, you know, what we do for fun. Like, if we don't set those kind of core boundaries with ourselves, it kind of bleeds out into every other facet of our life. Um, and that's where we get ourselves into mucky waters, I think, sometimes, you know, and
yeah.
we don't have clear guidance of what we hold in our heart.
Yeah, that's definitely because when I just only asked you about the boundaries and the analogy about the egg just came back to me and it's saying, well, when you're setting the boundaries and you just only saying to stop for something, then your worthiness is coming back because now you can. That's something I just only received now. The worthiness is coming and saying, oh God, because sometimes the people just saying, oh, you're very selfish because
Mm.
do you know what I mean? And then you're not really selfish because you just start learning your value. So what we value ourselves, which is only increasing all the frequency and
Mm-hmm.
also, yeah, which is only limiting that limiting beliefs, just only putting away. That's
Yeah. And our energy is so valuable, you know, what our energy and the light can do for ourselves, let alone other people, if we're not putting those boundaries in place and nurturing that energy to our fullest potential, then it just, you know, it can create chaos. And then that becomes that box again where you're, you know, living within these limits.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow, that's amazing. That's everything's just only flowing. I just only feel like a flowing, 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 flowing. That's amazing. So we've got the limiting beliefs, and we've got also the inner child. So some of you watching us really know what is the inner child and how you can find the inner child. Actually, we don't have to find it. We have to just only go back and just only ask those questions. How I'm feeling, if I'm worthy, like you just only said, that boundaries and everything. Um, how do you feel? Of course, definitely. How do you feel? Because it's a mastering the emotions. How do you feel the emotions around the limiting beliefs in a child? How is that? I know that's a big question, it's a really vast question. So whatever is coming to your mind now, can you tell us a little bit more? How do you feel around the emotions? What kind of the emotions there really?
Yeah, and I think, you know, for me, you know, we spoke about me being in that little box from 4.5 years old. But due to all of that, due to all those circumstances way back then, um, I lost, or maybe I never learned the ability to understand my emotions, the ability to communicate my emotions, and the ability to regulate my emotions. So emotional intelligence didn't really come for me until a lot later in life, which made that box even more explosive, you know, growing up and not understanding how you felt, let alone being able to share that with other people. And usually the way I shared it was all wrong. So it wasn't until I was older and started to really, you know, look inside and listen to my gut and be like, you know, 1 minute I'm being explosive and 1 minute I'm crying, and just these different ranges and spectrums, but having no understanding of why. And that was a big shift for me, really taking responsibility for my emotions. That, you know, there's this song in a Taylor Swift, this line in a Taylor Swift song, and it says, "Look what you made me do." And when I look at that in terms of my emotions, no one made me do anything. That I don't believe that is possible unless you're physically tying someone up and putting them somewhere.
Yeah.
Nobody makes you do anything. They might cause a reaction, they might cause a response, but that is again built from our backstory, from our worldview, from our environments, from our level of pain and suffering, from our emotional intelligence. Um, and it flips it back, because it's not look what you made me do, it's look how I processed it. And when you don't have that emotional intelligence, the regulation, the communication, it becomes this fiery, you know. And that's why I know, when I grew up in social circles and people were like, you made me do that, you made me feel that way, you made me do this. Nobody has that capacity. It's within ourselves, or at least I believe so. So that was a big shift for me, was the personal responsibility piece of my emotions, that it wasn't necessarily somebody else's fault that I felt sad or angry, and I
Yeah.
had the ability to and the power to change that
Yeah, that's
and
why
manage it.
yeah, that's amazing because that's how we're creating the limiting another limiting beliefs. Actually, not when we're creating, because we unravel or undiscover. That's a victim position. Yeah, that's another one. But
Mm.
but when I went on your website, I found the beautiful quotes and turn your pain to purpose, control the narrative. So that's definitely exactly what you said about the emotions. That everything what you Sonia explained, and the pain to the purpose. How can you describe it, or how can you explain this turn your pain to the purpose?
Oh, you know, there's an amazing book by Viktor E. Frankl. I don't know if you've read it. It's called Man's Search for Meaning.
No,
Um,
not yet, not
and
yet.
it definitely gave me a little bit of motivation in terms of what my next move was when I connected with all this pain, suffering, inner child, limiting beliefs, when I opened up those dialogues and got in touch with myself.
Mm.
I said, now what? Like, now what? Is that, is it now all I've learned and all I've went through, is that in vain, or am I going to use it? Am I going to fuel it into something bigger? And that for me was when I was like, I need to move fields. I'd worked in hospitality for 20 years, and I said I need to be doing what speaks to my heart, and that is using my lived experience to support others. So it's just finding a channel for that pain to be beautiful. You know, finding the flower growing out from the mud. That was just, you know, that just made so much sense to me, and that's
Yeah.
what I mean when I talk about pain to purpose. Is that no, we didn't ask for this, we didn't deserve it. You know, we're not all supposed to suffer all the time, but being able to find something beautiful within it um, is really, really powerful.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because when we're going to start see our pain as a gift, I know it's really
Mhm.
hard to say that sometimes, but it's really gift. But we need to actually we are just only reflected after when we just only gone through and just only receive it and achieve it all the lesson we just only supposed to took from that experience. But yeah, definitely pain to the purpose of life. Yeah. That's why you are using your pain when you went through. That's your purpose of life. That's your mission. That's your passion. That you would like to help others to thrive through life instead of survive. Wow, that's amazing. That's a mastering emotion and speaking the truth. And how about your truth? Shall we just only say about your own truth? How you can see your own truth. I'm not asking the specific questions because sometimes when I'm asking the people, what is your truth? And say, my truth? What kind of the truth? So what is really
Mhm.
driving you inside to be who you are, truly are?
You know, I think for me is that it takes a village. You know, I heard that phrase when I was younger and I never gave it any heed because I built this little box for myself and I was always fighting against the world.
Mhm.
When I opened that box and when I realized, you know, we are all in the same storm and we are so inherently connected that it takes a village, it takes the support, the conversations, the moments of pure joy that we create together is, and that is, you know, if I speak about truth, it's community. I would say community and connection are, I don't think I'd be where I'm at in life if it wasn't for the influence and support of other people. And I know it actually took me a very long time to get to that stage. I would never let people in. I would never let people see how I was really feeling. Um, and that was the game changer for me, is realizing that how connected we are and influential we are as a collective. So I like to think that's my truth, is, you know, the belonging and community of togetherness.
Yeah, belonging to the tribe. Is it that speaking your own truth, giving, I'm asking your perspective, of course, is it that speaking your own truth, giving you the opportunity to release the limiting beliefs, release, that limiting beliefs from your system, from your emotional, I don't know, aura or that kind of the things, how you can see.
Yeah, because I think a big thing for me is when I started to be receptive of community and I started to open those conversations, is I realized that I had been at war with myself, with the world for so long because I thought I was the only one going through it. So when we open up those conversations, we realize how many similarities we actually do have and how many experiences are similar to each other. And from there, we can find this beautiful connection to nurture where it's like, we get this, we've got this, and we're in this together. And, you know, I say the phrase, the best part about recovery is that you don't have to do it alone. But
Yeah.
that is so important to me because when I shut everybody out from the world, when I boxed myself in, the suffering was greatly increased.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something you only kind of learn with experience. I mean, as I said, when I was a kid, people said the phrase, it takes a village all the time. And I was like, I don't need a village. And so once all that self-development and introspection and shifting, that it allowed me the space to really see the potential we have as a community.
Yes, that's definitely when we've got mm, another soul, another human being helping us. Yeah, definitely not alone. Yeah, because when I'm just only seeing the truth, when that's how my podcast is calling Master Your Emotion and Speak Your Truth, because everything is about the limiting beliefs. We can just only diminish, we got dismantling. Because when we start speaking the truth, we can see where we've got the limiting, where we've got that boundaries, not setting that boundaries yet. Okay. That's how I can see that stuff. Yeah. So definitely speaking the truth and everything will be good. Yeah, in our lives, definitely like that. Wow. So like you just when you mentioned the inner child, just belonging to the tribe and meeting beliefs and everything would be good. Like I just mentioned as well. So would you mind just only share any information if you would like to? Of course, what really helped you during that uncomfortable time in your life? I mean, any mantras, any quotes, any healing set, I don't mean no healing session, but any healing workshops or that kind of the thing with the audience, so they can take it and they can uh, apply on their life.
Yeah, I got to think about that for a little second. I mean, I
Of
think it's
course.
just been a culmination of everything I've experienced and felt over the years that really builds this story of its own. And then how you perceive that as well. But I don't think there's not one thing sticking out at me that was like, aha. I think,
Any book?
yeah,
I
as
don't.
I've said a few times, I think it's so important that we have these open dialogues. As I said, if that's a therapist or a friend or a family member or a stranger you're sitting on a park bench with, um, just allowing yourself the space and capacity to know that we're not alone and we don't have to be. Oh, books. You said books. I am an avid reader, so I read about 2 books a month. Um, I really a big shift for me came when I read the book The Power of Habit. I don't know if you've read that, but I read it about 10 years ago. Um, and it really spoke to me about how many of the things we do kind of on autopilot, giving our past experiences, and how we can shift those dynamics. And when you start building healthier habits and start surrounding yourself with the right opportunities and right people, then that just gives you so much space for growth. Yeah. So I think, it's that kind of personal responsibility again of feeding your mind and body what it needs to thrive.
Yeah, that's definitely. Wow. Yeah. Is anything you would like to add to the audience if they would like to improve their life or something like that? Oh, maybe if they would like to find you and also would like to book a session with you or maybe read more about your work, what you're doing.
Yeah, you can find me on natsmentalhealth.com or Nats Mental Health on Instagram. Honestly, as a peer supporter, our philosophy and core values are that we don't give advice. And definitely for me, as a worker in this field, as a helper role, a supportive figure, is that we're trying to create empowerment and not dependency. So when people ask me for advice, it's always about helping them find their inner truth and their inner voice. And I don't think that is something you can power in yourself, that we have the inner voice. Yeah. We have the power within us. Just create space for that. Be gentle with yourself and nourish that seed, nourish that little seed that's speaking to you that says, I have the power, because you do. And, no one can take that away from you. So just, yeah, I think that's super important to me.
Amazing. Yes, definitely. Just, yeah, planting the seeds and giving them, yeah, supporting them all the time. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, fantastic. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for coming and accepting my
Oh, thank
invitation
you for
today.
having me.
Yes,
This has been
definitely.
great. And yeah, we're on different time zones. So I just started my morning, this has been a great way to start the morning and refresh some of my thoughts and beliefs. So yeah, thank you for the space.
Thank you so much. Yes, and we'll maybe see you in the next time with the podcast. Who knows? So leave me a comments below, the people who are watching us, if you would like to know something about the limiting beliefs, inner child, empowerment, and self-development. Definitely, we're going to think about it. Definitely, and we're going maybe record another. Sorry, another one. Thank you. Have an awesome day.
Thanks.